Alright, while the M37 is still waiting to get some resources in, I decided I wanted to go ahead and get started on the next thing on the list, which is the GP-20 Ultimatum from Helldivers 2. So I just opened up Blender. This is now Blender 5.2, so I don't know what's new, but it's always good to have the best, newest updates. So we're not going to need any of these, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Right-click, delete, and we're going to set this orientation with this Y button here, and then I'm going to hit Shift-A, and we'll go to Image, References, and we will navigate to wherever I put my reference images for this particular prop. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So I took some screenshots directly from the game, got all kinds of different angles, so hopefully we'll be able to know exactly what everything's supposed to look like. So there was a bit of an issue with the last 7 dagger that I made, and that was the scale. The original seemed kind of big, then I made that was almost 14 inches, that seemed kind of large, so I made a 10-inch version for someone, and that seemed kind of small. So I'm thinking from here to here will maybe be 12 inches total. So first off, let's go ahead and see what that looks like. I'm going to hit Shift A, and we're going to get a plane. Let's start with a plane. And I'm going to rotate with R and then along the X axis, and I'll hold Control to get the degrees to go up by 5 degree increments. And we're going to put that on a 90-degree angle. And we're going to go up here and hit X-ray so we can see right through this guy. And oh, another thing we should do early is scene units and then set length to millimeters, since that's what our 3D printers are going to use. I'll give us a better idea of how what kind of sizes we're going to be working with. So let's turn on with this little arrow here, mesh edit mode, and go on to edge lengths, turn that on. So now we have 2000 millimeters. I'm going to go ahead and go to Google and see what 12 inches to millimeters is. 304, 305. So let's go ahead and scale this guy down to 305. Oh, so I grabbed this guy, I switched over to tab mode, went to object mode. We're on edge mode right now. You can see this is vertice mode where we can play around with the individual vertices. We got edge mode where we can play around with the edges, which are the lines connecting the vertices. And then we have face mode. We only have one face so far, which is inside of at least 3 edges. This one has 4. So we're going to go to edge mode. And you can switch between them using 1, 2, 3 on your num strip. So we're going to hit 2 to go into edge mode, and then we're going to hit S to scale, and then I'm going to roll in with my mouse I'm going to zoom in by rolling up on my mouse wheel, and we're going to go to 305, let's say. So that will be about the size we're looking for. I went back into object mode with tab, and I'm going to click on our reference image. We can see that it's outlined in orange, and I'm going to hit S for scale, and then we're going to zoom that down to about this size. I'm hitting G to move it around, basically grab for G, and then we're going to put that right around here-ish. And let's scale this up just a little bit, and that'll give us a pretty good idea of how big this is going to be. Now, the biggest part now is going to be the handle. I want to see how comfortable that's going to be, because it needs to be about 40 millimeters for my hand to feel good around it. So let's see where about that is. Guess we can move this up. I just clicked on this edge in edge mode, G, Z, to bring it up along the Z axis. And then I'm going to right click on that edge, and then I'm going to subdivide. Let's open this subdivision thing up and go 2. 2. And then I went into vertices mode with 1, and we'll hit G, X to move along the X axis. And then we'll put that one around where that handle part's going to be, and this one. And it looks like it's going to be 60 millimeters. Let's see. That might be a touch large. I was afraid of it being too small, but that might be a bit large. So I'm going to actually shrink this down a bit to be, say, 45. And we'll go ahead and go into object mode, get our image, and then I'll also scale, S for scale, to put this down a little bit more so it matches that a little more closely. So I think this will be about the scale that we're going to work with here. All right, so from here, usually I like to start with the handle. Let's bring this entire thing up a little bit with a GZ. So we have this bottom here, around here-ish. And then we have this little dip, and then it goes into this handle guard that wraps around here. So I think the first thing we might want to do is create this handle. It looks like it's a bit rounded, more like a pill shape rather than a rounded rectangle. So we have our 3D cursor over here, so I'm going to hit Shift A to bring up a circle, and then we'll bring that down to, say, 25 millimeters, doesn't really matter all that much. And let's increase the vertices to 64 to give us a little more detail to work with. And we're going to go ahead and scale that down a bit, bring it over here, and I'm going to hit period to zoom in on our circle. And let's say, we made it 25, but that was actually the radius. So we have to divide that by 2. So let's bring this down to 25 like we wanted. Around there, that'll be the thickness that we're looking at. And I'm going to go into object mode and select our picture GY just to pull it away so we can see what we're working with a little more clearly. And there's our handle bit. We're going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to pull it back with GX. Let's take off edge links for now so we can see what we're doing. GX, put it over here, and then I'm going to take all these on this side, delete, and then I'm going to Shift D to duplicate after selecting all these. And then let's go to up here to our pivot point. Let's make that individual origin. And then I'm going to right click and let's mirror these vertices along the x-axis, global x. Now we just flipped it over. So now we can put this side probably over here-ish. It's covered by this guard here, but that's okay. And we can, I guess we don't need to delete those. Let's put some edges over here. So collecting these two vertices with left click and then shift left click, I hit F. So we'll do that over here as well. Left click, shift left click to add that, and then F to add those in there. It looks a little thick, doesn't it? Let me check on my calipers where 25 millimeters is. And maybe it's a little thick. Maybe we can reduce it to 20. So I'm going to hit A to select all of these, and then I'm going to hit S and then Y, and then we're going to shrink. Oh, let's get edge links back on so we can see exactly where we are. S, Y, and then we'll scale that down to, say, 20. That doesn't look too bad. We kind of squished it a little bit, and maybe that wasn't the move. It looks a little more squared off than squished. So, you know what? Instead of the circle, maybe we should have started with a square. So we can totally do that. Start over there with a plane. Let's make this 20-ish millimeters. And then we'll bring this guy down here with G. Yeah, let's put it about here. We can bevel that down a little bit later. That'll be around the center. And then we'll hit S with this whole thing selected, X, S, X. and then we'll scale it down along that x-axis, maybe a little wider. I thought this was 25, but let's scale it down SY this time to make that middle point. Yeah, we did that with the circle, not this guy. So about 25 is about there. And then with all these vertices already selected, let's right click, bevel vertices, and then we can start making that rounded shape here. I'm rolling up on the mouse to increase the number of vertices, roll down to decrease, and we want it to be nice and rounded. So we'll put it around here. That looks okay. And then to make this little bottom bit here, let's, with all this selected, hit E to extrude, and then we'll right-click GZ to go straight down, just a wee bit. GZ, let's put it right around there, and then we'll scale it down with S, and we still have individual point as our pivot. So we just take it in a little bit like that, and then we'll hit Edge Mode 2 on the num strip, and then we'll bevel these edges to round that out. And then we got that little cuppy bit. Seems like it could go a little further back, just like that. And then let's take this top edge up here, and we'll extrude with E, and then I'll hit Z, so we're going, hit Z twice to go up and down along the Z axis, and we'll bring it up here, and then we'll extrude again, and right-click GZ, bring it up here, and let's G X to move it along the x-axis, so it needs to go a little over here. And it looks like this edge comes in a bit because that doesn't poke out as far. So I'm going to hit GX with those selected and pull it in just a touch. Then it looks like it kind of bulbouses out. This one goes straight out. This one seems to go in and then out for this covering to work. So, I guess we can do that individually. So let's just go E to extrude, right click G, and then we'll just manually place it over here. I guess it would keep going kind of like that side, but with that coverage, so in edge mode, which is 2 on the numpad, I'm going to select all these vertices here. Then we're going to right click, subdivide, and then take this edge that we just made, and I'm going to hit GZ to pull it down, and then GX to pull it back. Actually, let's Control Z to undo that. And instead, I'm going to go Shift V so we can just roll along these edges. And then I'm going to pull it down here because we don't really want to move this area. It's just this area over here. So I'm going to go into vertices mode and then GX and pull that out a bit to make that little bulbousy area there. And I'm going to subdivide in edge mode, do this one again because it looks like it goes inward just a bit here. So we're going to put that in. Right, it kind of comes out. That could be just because of this cover. So let's go GX to pull that in just a little bit there. And I think that looks a little cleaner. Let's drag this out with GX, Seize mode, and yeah. And then we can start trying to make this curve. Wonder how we should do this guard. So with all those selected, yeah, I guess we could just layer the guard on top of that later. So I'm going to extrude, right click GZ, and we're going to bring it up about here. I think. And then we'll extrude, right click, G to grab. I'll move it over here. We'll just focus on this side for right now. What is all this? Don't think we need any of that. We already got the sizes set, so that's okay. We can get rid of that. Let's see. Let's continue extruding. So I'm gonna move it up here, and then GX here, and then maybe we can do this side as well. So I'm thinking this just goes straight up because it's completely covered by this trigger. So let's switch over to snap. Let's turn on snap, and then I'm going to go over here to this little arrow and hit active and vertex. And then I'm going to hold shift and double click on one of these end vertices here. And with snap on, we can hit GX, and then we can snap it over here just by hovering over it. And then we'll collect all of these and shift double click on one of these again, and then GX, and then snap it over here. That way we have a nice straight line. And just to make sure that is straight, let's go ahead and do it one more time. GX, and then snap over here. All right. So that's going straight up. Probably don't need these curves anymore then. But in any case, maybe we should put these grips on. Or I feel like this should be beveled a little bit. But at the same time, with it being covered, it won't really matter, but I still want to. So with this edge loop selected, you got the whole thing. And we'll right click and then bevel edges. Then pull it out. We just want a little bit of bevel. Maybe that much bevel. Let's put something in there, and I want to do the same over here because I really don't like having sharp edges, especially in places you're going to be touching with your hands, so that can be uncomfortable. So let's put another bevel over here, maybe a lesser bevel, just to give it some roundness, just give that some smoothness. And these also, I think, because of these edges back here, I want to get rid of that sharpness, so I'm going to bevel that as well, just a little bit. Just that much. Got a little roundness. All right. So with that in play, let's go ahead and try to make these grooves in here. I don't want to do that. So I'm thinking for this one, we'll do some knife projecting. So I'm going to shift right click to bring our 3D cursor over here. And then I'm going to hit shift A, and we'll bring up a plane. And that's about the right size. I'm going to hit R to rotate and try to get this angle about so. Oh, and then we'll move this out in front of our shape. And then I'll even scale it down with SY because we just need a line. We don't need that all that area. So in order to make more of these on the same kind of angle, we're gonna take this in edge mode, and we're gonna hit E to extrude directly in front of it, like so. And with this, we can get one of these edges and create a new axis of sorts by going up to here in global, hit this plus with this selected, hit plus, and now we can use this edge as an axis. So we can, let's go into face mode, grab that guy. Now when we hit G, Y, we're using this. We can go back to global by hitting GY twice, or we should be able to. Or GZ twice, GY would be, I think it's going back and forth now. Yeah, because that's the Y angle there. There, so we've created a new axis that we can use to easily create these edges that we're going to need to knife project this thing. So with this selected, this face selected, I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate, and then we're going to hit GY so we can use that new axis. Then I'll put this guy, oh, well, you know what? Let's get both the faces, because I think these are equally spaced apart. So we want to keep that equal spacing. So I'm going to hit Shift D with both of these selected and then GY to pull it up here and put that over there. Oops. Yeah. And then Shift D to duplicate again, right click, GY, and then we'll put another one over here. And let's move that one back with GX. That way we cover the entire thing. And we got another one over here. Shift D to duplicate, GY to pull it down. And then it looks like we have another one down here. So Shift D, right click, GY, and that should do it for what we are going to do next. All right, knife project is looking pretty good. So let's take this handle and then we'll go into edit mode with tab, and then we will control left click on this guy to highlight it in red. Then with this direct facing orientation, by hitting this Y, we can go up to mesh, knife project, and then cut through. And that should leave those marks on our handle, those diagonal marks. So now we can go back in object mode with tab and hit hide on this guy. So we're not going to need him anymore. And now that we have these, we can hopefully select them and scale those parts down some. So let's, maybe X-ray mode would help out with this. That's up here. And then we'll do our best to select these faces on both sides. That's why we got X-ray mode. That's why we got both sides going. And we'll select all these faces that we just created. We have a bunch of tiny faces in here, so we got to be careful to select all the ones we want. And getting all these guys together. And then we'll try to get all these as well. Oh, and I'm hitting left click to start things off, and then C to get this circle select up, and then just holding left click to gather all these guys up together. Did we miss that? How did I miss that? That was the square that we started with. Control Z to undo, we got that, and you didn't cut through with this one. Why you not cut? Hmm. Okay, we're gonna get rid of these faces. I don't think that would matter, but I'm gonna hit X, only face on those. And actually get rid of these edges too. Left click and holding shift left click, and then X, and then edge. And it went through. I'm not sure why it didn't cut through there. I'm going to hit Shift N to recalculate the normals. And then on this one, we'll hit A to select all, and then Shift N on these to recalculate the normals as well. This basically tells Blender to recalculate which faces are facing outward from an object versus inward. It can affect a number of things, especially when you're 3D printing or using modifiers or such. We'll see if that helps any. Let me try that again. All right, with this one in edit mode, we will control left click on our cutter, back into mesh, knife project, cut through. This time it actually got all of them, seems like. So let's hide this one again and start that all over. Okay. Okay, so with our circle select with C, I'll left click drag, try to collect all our little pieces here. Here, and then circle and shift left click to get rid of deselect something. And circle select, left clicking, going all along here. Let's get rid of the edge links so we can see a little clearer there. Miss that little guy. Miss anyone up here? Doesn't look like it. Let's get these. And then these. Got a little extra. We want that one. Shift left click to deselect, and then C left click, hold left click in order to use the circle select to get all these little bits and pieces. Shift left click. We need those? I mean, it cut through for a reason. This is a bit awkward. I don't think it should have. You know what? We're not going to select those. See what that looks like. And we'll select all of these. Some more tiny guys. And I'm rolling in and out with the mouse to zoom with the mouse wheel. Alright, with those selected, we'll get, say, individual origins, and then we'll try extruding with E, and we'll hit scale, well, to scale it inward a bit. So we're extruding inward to make those bits. So it feels like some parts might be a little deep. It's a Control Z, and try that again. You know, a little more cautious. I mean, just want them to be somewhat visible on our prints. They're not going to serve a tremendous purpose. From here, you know what? I'm going to go to global, and then I'm going to scale it, S for scale, and then Y to pull it in just a little bit. Let's turn off X-ray. So they're definitely visible. You can definitely see that they're there. Yeah, I think that does it for those grippy bits. Okay. So from there, how do we want to do this other bit? So we can overlay this grip over here. What is bothering me? We might do another knife project. So I think we're going to make this pattern out of, let's say, a plane. Shift A, mesh plane, and then we'll rotate with R, X along the X-axis, holding Control to get it at a 90-degree angle. And then we'll go in edit mode, or vertices mode, and then we'll try making this shape. Let's turn off snap. And then let's go ahead and subdivide this by a few because we're going to need a couple more points here. Actually, this guy can go almost all the way up here. And then we'll just start plotting. I think G, let's turn on snap, G, Z to put that on the same level, and then this guy will just go off here. And let's get rid of this point, and we'll start a new maybe over here. kind of over here. Is this connected? Sort of. There does seem to be a plate that it kind of sits on under. So maybe that's what that is. So let's start. I guess we'll include that. Hmm. Okay, so that, and actually, let's just go down here. And we'll drag this guy down here and start making the triggery bit, or at least the shell around it. Um, let's snap this guy with GZ, I mean GX, and then GZ. And let's get rid of this edge with 2, and then X, and then delete edge. And then we could just use this to E for extrude, GX, extrude with E, GZ, and then right click, extrude, right click, GX. Let's get it over here. Seems like it extends a little past this point and then it goes upward. The GZ. Let's turn off snap again. GE to extrude. E takes us all the way down here. Then E maybe here, here, and then we're just kind of following this outline to the best of our ability. GX, E, GZ, GX again, E. Let's go ahead and snap it to that height. G, and we will take it out here. Okay, and then we can do this one. Let's get rid of this edge. And we'll actually get rid of this whole thing. Right click and then delete those vertices. And then we'll take this guy out here. And then we'll need another one over here. Maybe more like over here. And then we'll extend, extrude that over here. Since we are knife projecting, we don't have to follow all this other stuff quite yet. And let's go ahead and bevel some of these corners a little bit just to smooth them out. Just a smidge. Oh, we don't actually need any of that either yet. So with those vertices selected, I'm going to right click, bevel vertices, and maybe bring it up to 5. Actually, Control Z, I didn't look over here. See, they're overlapping a bit, so we'll just reduce that a tiny bit. This area is pretty small, shouldn't be a problem. Okay, now that we have that shape, I'm thinking we knife project it onto our handle. And to do that, I'm going to hit GY to bring it out just a wee bit. And we're going to take this shape in object mode, go into edit mode, and then control right click, or control right click, yeah. No, control, I actually have to think about it. Control left click, right? And then we're going to go to mesh, knife project, and this time we don't have to cut through, we'll just do half. And we didn't get, oh yeah, no, we did, it's up there. Q. Should we? Should we go all the way through? because I was thinking about mirroring it using the mirror modifier, but maybe a little later yet. Let's cut through. And then we can hide our cutter. And now that we have these shapes, we can do like before and scale them outward this time instead of inward like we did with the grip. Is that what that looks like? Yeah. Um, it does come down here, doesn't it? This is kind of awkward. It looks like these two are arguing on where they should be. You know, I probably will end up mirroring this whole thing. So in order to do that, we'll go ahead and divide it in half by selecting all of these edges here, subdividing. That should be dead center. And then we'll get rid of this side. All of those. And, now before we, I guess it doesn't really matter. Let's switch, get this edge selected in edge mode, and then we'll hit F3. And let's put cursor to active. Cursor to active, that way it's over there. And we'll use our 3D cursor as our pivot point. And with that in object mode, let's go over here to modifiers, add modifier, generate, mirror. And then we'll go along the y-axis. Okay. So in order to try to fix that, we'll hit Shift A, oh no, Control A, and do all the transforms there. Okay. Okay, so how long is this now? Since we did just transform the scale. 19.9 millimeter, which I think we decided was too small. Right, it should be more like 40. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this and scale it up. Something more along the lines of 40. That should be about there, and then we'll take this and then we'll scale it too. One thing I don't really like about Blender is how it does this scaling and transforming stuff, and you gotta stay on top of it. Otherwise, things end up to the wrong size. But anyway, that's taken care of now. And just to check, let's see, with extrude, I'm gonna see how long this is now. G X 168. What is that? In millimeters, that's only 6.6. 6.6 inches. Does that seem right? Wait a tick. Let me check some things on the old calipers here. Yeah, 40 is about how long or how wide I want this handle to be. And it is currently 30. So let's go ahead and scale this up again. 3D cursor is our pivot point. Let's go to 40-ish millimeters. And that makes it 223. Going back to Google, 223, 8.7, almost 9 inches. That's definitely better than 6 inches. Still seems small, but I guess it's not that, I mean, if we add the round and also the stock, it'll be a lot longer, so we'll keep it there. That seems okay. Okay, so let's get rid of that. We don't need those. And let's try to get these bits out. These are gonna be tricky. Because if we scale them out now, we'll still have these ribs to deal with, which is not terribly ideal. We could deal with it, but it would take time. Wonder if there's an easier way that I'm not thinking of here. Possibly a Boolean join, where we have to recreate all this and then join them together. Do I want to do that? See which one would take less time and effort, right? That might be the better way to do this particular part. So I'm going to control Z, and unfortunately that means undoing all of our scaling that we also did here. But I think eventually it will turn out better for it. So that was kind of a waste of time. Where are we? Should be around here. Okay, so this is before the cuts were made. Okay, so let's go ahead and rescale it. That actually seems pretty close to where we wanted it, but let's just size it back down to 40. And then we'll take all of this, do the same, and well, I guess we can do the same here since we're using our 3D cursor as our pivot point. Okay. Alright, so this actually needs to be really close to this if we're gonna do the Boolean join method. Like basically right on top of it. A little off because it is risen a tiny bit. And I guess we can mirror this. Shift D and then mirror along the Y to get that over here because we want to surround this. And I think we will end up connecting these edge loops with just Alt left click to select the edge loop and then Alt Shift left click to add to it. And as long as those are open, we can right click, bridge those edge loops. So they are now connected. And we should do the same for this side as well. Alt left click and then Alt Shift left click and right click, bridge those edge loops. So there's a solid mass around it now. And in order to get this going, let's see. We should probably make these into faces. So Alt left click, Alt Shift left click, gather up all these guys here, and then just hit F to put a face on it. This one's a little low. Oh, it should be with X-ray mode on. Let's take these, bring it in, GX here, then that's GZ to snap it up here, and then GX to bring it out a little bit beyond that point. Right, and okay, since this rounds out over here, let's take these edges, right click, subdivide, and we'll bring that subdivision back here a bit. Maybe all the way back here. And then we'll bring this up, GZ, and let's match it with this one over here. And we won't really need to mess around with this just yet. So let's get rid of those edges. And then we will take these with Alt left click and then Alt Shift left click, and this as well. In that case, though, we should take these as also. Shift V, pull that up a bit. Then we'll extrude GX, pull it out, GX, and snap it up here. And then we'll create a face over here with F. And then let's select these edge loops. Hit F to turn those into a face. And then we'll do the same thing over here. F, turn those into a face. Okay, so now I think we got most of what we need to wrap our handle around. Actually, there looks like there's a bit here. Is that? I think that's just Mars, yeah. Yeah, never mind. Never mind that. So that's a solid space. I'm thinking we can bevel these to fit better, to conform a bit better. Seems like that sticks out a little too far, maybe. Oh, we should close this face as well. All these faces. So, left click, shift left click, and then F. Close up those faces so we have a nice solid object around our piece. And we can bevel these. Oh. Let's hit A, shift and recalculate those normals. Try that again. There we go. I wonder if it should go in already. Inward towards the where the trigger will be. So I'm gonna go with medium point as our pivot point. Well, because doing that would mess that up a little bit. Unless, of course, we added subdivision here. Let's drag this with GX over here. And then we turn this into its own face. So let's get rid of these two faces. And then put face over here and over here. That way, when we do bevel that, it won't interfere with the larger face. So let's get these, give those a face again. And now when we bevel, it'll stop at this line. So it won't mess with the rest of this. So let's bevel. And I wanted to take this in first. So with median point as our pivot point, we'll hit S, Y, take in a little bit, and a little bit more. But now this seems kind of sharp. I do not like that. I don't like that sharpness. And with these curves, it'd be tricky to bevel it, so let's just keep it here then. Still rounded. And we can bevel these too. Bevel. Feels like that sticks out way too far. On an X-ray mode, we'll just, yeah. You can definitely see how far that sticks out. Let's turn off snap. Get a little more control in it. Seems better now, I think. And then we can do the bevel. It's turning off X-ray mode. Right click, bevel. A little rounder there. I wonder if we should... Oh, that's due to clipping. Let's go to... What was it? This little arrow here that you can barely see. And view and clip start. Let's put that to 0.1. That way when we zoom into things, it doesn't start clipping on us again. Let's also bevel this first, maybe. Uh, hmm. Okay, let's bevel all of these. Just to round out everything, so it's less scratchy, less irritating. We can bevel this as well. Bevel that. And screw it, let's bevel this. Yeah, a lot more rounded. A lot more rounded. I don't know if I'm gonna mess with all these little ones. I don't like leaving them like that. Let's Control Z. I want to bevel this too. You're actually straight, so you don't matter. That part looks like it extends out a little bit, so maybe not bevel this. But definitely bevel these, right? A little rounder, a little more comfortable in the hand. Maybe something like that. Ooh, this is hideous. Let's Control Z to get back to when we beveled that. And maybe we'll just do all of them at once. There. That's a lot nicer. And you know what? We can just use sandpaper on these really thin ones if it becomes an issue. Also want to bevel this. Okay, now that we have that shape, I hope we can do a Boolean join. I don't use Boolean much, so let's see if it'll even work. Do we need that? Not for this join. Let's separate that. Okay, so what I just did was in this object, I selected this trigger bit, then hit P, and then separate selection. That put it as its own object, separate from this one. So this is its own thing, this is now its own thing. So let's try a Boolean join. So I'm going to take, let's say this one, add modifier, generate Boolean, union, and then select this eyedropper to select our outer shell bit there. And I think we can hide the outer shell now that it joined into a single object. It won't actually until we hit apply, so we can see as is. You know what? I think before we apply the join, let's go ahead and, wait, it's already doing it. Control Z, Control Z till before we did the join. It's still on there. Let's just turn it off then. Okay, so I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate this, and let's name this OG handle, and then we'll name this G handle I don't know, outer. Alright, that way we have those two that we can always go back to in case this screws up. So we'll call this handle then. Handle. And then the other bit that I hid. We should probably label these. Handle, cutter, trigger. Oh, cutter. Handle outer. Okay, that's why I was confused. OGs, OGs. And we need another one of these. And then that will be not the OG. That'll just be handle cutter. Or handle outer. That's going to get confusing. Let's hide that. And then let's hide the OGs. So that way we don't screw them up. Add, generate, boolean, union. And then eyedropper onto our outer. And then let's hide the outer. And let's go ahead and apply. So now they have been fused together. I think that was going to be a lot easier than the original thing I was doing. Looks like we might have some internal geometry to get rid of. Let me check on that if it's... Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. It actually worked pretty good. Pretty good. Alright, so we have most of the handle. And with that, I think I'm going to take a break. And if you don't want to go through all this modeling, I do have the STL files needed to print all of my 3D printable props available to supporters over on my Patreon. We currently have over 40 props available and are adding more all the time. This prop will also be made available once it's finished. So if you'd like to skip the modeling and gain access to an entire armory of 3D printable props, check out my Patreon, link in the description. It is only $5 a month and you gain access to the entire armory of over 40 props. Staying a member ensures you get access to everything new added to the armory immediately and of course, very much helps support the channel. Speaking of supporting, we have to show our gratitude to M. John Simon, a real hero of the channel, supporting at the hero tier. Become a hero to get yourself special mention in these very videos, and as always, like and subscribe to ensure you never miss out on the next video. Until then, I have been Ken with Kenjutsu Bring It to Life, and I am out.